لماذا لا تصلي يا ناسي الصلوات قل لي إن الحياة بلا صلاة.
All praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, blessings and salutations given on the last and final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So very quickly, inshallah, quick question, quick raise show of hands. Who here has been praying since they were a little kid? Okay, a lot of people, inshallah. What was some of the reasons why you guys started praying, or ladies started praying?
Seeing our parents pray.
Seeing your parents pray, what else? Did anyone here's parents say if you don't pray, then you're going to get put a time out and get hit and all that stuff? Few people? Okay. So, subhanAllah, the companions, when they would pray, I'm going to mention a very beautiful story of the very first salah that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed. One of the very first salahs that he prayed. And I want you to imagine this. There's a lot of parents sometimes, and this is just me speaking, not generalizing things, but a lot of parents that traumatize their children that if they don't pray, that God will throw them in the hellfire, right? This is like real, right? Like, you don't pray, God's going to throw you in the hellfire, you're going to get beat and all this stuff, right? I want you to imagine this. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the very first salah that he did was through Jibreel teaching him. So when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam became a prophet, Jibreel taught him how to pray. Jibreel hit his wing on the ground and a spring came that blocked the view that people would see because they're like, oh, what's this person doing, right? They didn't want to see the Prophet Muhammad bowing and making ruku and everyone's like, what's going on? So Jibreel hit this and the Prophet Muhammad learned how to do wudu and he learned how to perform his prayer. When he goes home, who's living in the home with him? Ali radiallahu an, the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who was 4 years old at the time. And the Prophet Muhammad is praying with the very first Muslim after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which was a woman, Khadija radiallahu anha. As they are praying, Ali radiallahu anha, he walks in, he's like, what you guys doing up in here? What's going on? What are y'all doing? And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sits him down and he tells him, we are praying to the one God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? This is how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ welcomes prayer to children. Right? So many times, when we are not welcomed like that, you see your parents praying and it becomes a very welcoming experience, right? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is in his sajda. I want you to imagine this. Right? The companions, the best of people, they're foot to foot, shoulder to shoulder, and these two little kids kind of sneak in between the people, and the grandkids of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ jump on his back and they start playing. Right? Nobody gets up and says, whose kids are these? Get them out of the masjid. Nobody does that. These two kids are the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's grandkids, and he's asked, what kept you in sajda so long? He's like, I don't want to disturb their play. Right? But what you'll find, inshallah, the next thing I'm going to share with you, Salah is the most important. We have to rediscover the love of Salah for us. Sometimes we have to reinstall Salah in our hearts and in our lives, right? Raise your hand. Have you ever prayed and never felt a thing? Raise your hand. Have you ever prayed and just didn't feel nothing? Like you're expecting like some like your heart's going to open up and you're like, oh, like it's like, right? Sometimes you pray and it's just like, okay, I got it out of the way. Check mark. Next thing, right? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want to paint this picture, okay? During the year of sorrow, his wife Khadija radiallahu anha, married for 25 years, the first person that the Prophet Muhammad ran to when he had a near-death experience. Imagine this. He's in the cave all by himself. He's squeezed to the point that he couldn't breathe anymore, and when he's released, all of his lungs are literally squeezed. The air out of his lungs are squeezed. He's like, and he's told, Iqra, read. 3 times he has a near-death experience. He doesn't just sit in the cave looking at the ceiling like what just happened. He doesn't go to Abu Bakr and be like, you have no idea what just happened. He runs in the middle of the night, down the mountain, through all of the rocks, through all of these thorns that are there, into the arms of his wife Khadija radiallahu anha. Prophethood started in the arms of a woman. And this woman, his emotional support passed away after 25 years of marriage. His bodyguard, after many years was Abu Talib, the one that took care of him after Abdul Muttalib passed away at the age of 8. A father figure passes away. The Prophet Muhammad goes to Ta'if. Before this, something happens. Right? The Prophet Muhammad was an easy target now. Right? I want you to imagine how broken he was and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him. The Prophet Muhammad one day he was in his sajda. And as he's in his sajda, Abu Jahl, who was an enemy, used to, his friends used to kind of egg him on. Oh, look what this guy's doing right now. He's making sajda. Why don't you go do something about it? So Abu Jahl comes, and as the Prophet Muhammad is in his sajda, Abu Jahl comes with the intestines of an animal and throws it on his back till the Prophet Muhammad's belly touches the floor. And he spins now because of the heaviness of the intestines. Abu Jahl comes, takes off his scarf, wraps it around the Prophet Muhammad's neck, places his foot on the upper shoulder blades of the Prophet Muhammad, takes the two ends of the scarf, and starts to choke the Prophet Muhammad until Abu Bakr has to come and tackle Abu Jahl. And then Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad, takes the meat off of the Prophet Muhammad's back. As he's walking home, people start to point the finger. They're on their porch and they're laughing at the Prophet Muhammad, having no idea what's going on. He walks to his porch only to find garbage and intestines and filthy things that he just picks up with his hand and throws away. And as he walks into the home, Fatima takes a bowl of water, places his hand in that bowl and starts to clean the dirt that is on the Prophet Muhammad's hand. As a tear drops on the face of Fatima, she just wants to know, why are people being so mean to my father after I just lost my mother? The Prophet Muhammad goes to Ta'if. What happens at Ta'if is a whole discussion in itself. One thing I want to share with you is the Prophet Muhammad is thrown out of the city as he's walking for 3 miles with rocks pelted from his head to his toe. He's bleeding for 3 miles. Walking. Not picking up a stone saying, what's wrong with you all? He walks out of this city for 3 miles. It's pretty hard experience to go through. Hardship after hardship after hardship. You lose your spouse for 25 years. You lose your uncle who was like a father figure for almost 50 years of your life. And now, you just have a whole city disown you and throw rocks at you. The whole city doesn't like you. The Prophet Muhammad as he goes back home to Mecca, he realized that people now know about Ta'if. So what does he do? He takes refuge in this person's home that was right by the Kaaba. And Jibreel knocks on the door. The Prophet Muhammad answers, and there's a buraq right there. And the Prophet Muhammad goes on this buraq, and it flies all the way, step after step after step. And the Prophet Muhammad he stops in some areas to pray. He offers 2 rak'at for the place where Maryam gave birth to Isa, and a few other places. One place where Musa alayhi salam was on Mount Tur speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he leads, as he gets to Jerusalem, he leads over 100,000 of all of the past prophets in Salah. Can you imagine? And it got to the point where it was like awkward, like, who's gonna go? Musa, do you want to go pray? Do you want to be our imam? He's like, no. Ibrahim, what do you want? No. So then Jibreel takes the hand of Rasulullah and tells him to be the imam in front of all these prophets. Can you imagine how uplifting this was? To pray in front of all these prophets that came before him, praying in front, being the imam, and behind is Ibrahim and Ismail, your great-grandfather, right? Your great-great-great-great-grandfather, Adam alayhi salam, all of these prophets. And then Muhammad has stairs that come down in front of him. Each step is gold and silver with rubies and gems and angels all around these steps. And as the Prophet Muhammad does his miraj, after doing the Isra, and he goes up to Jannah, he goes up every single level of Jannah. And when he meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after all of this hardship, the one thing he's given, that he's able to give back to his ummah, is the 5 daily prayers of Salah. I want you to imagine that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He could have said anything to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, do what? Your prayers. I'm making salah obligatory. And there's this conversation that happens where, do this many prayers, he goes to Musa and so on. I don't want to get into the discussion of that, but know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him and us with 5 daily prayers. What do these 5 daily prayers do? First off, it's a gift to the hardships. After hardship, after hardship. Now, where was our body created? Where was Adam alayhi salam's body created? Who can tell me? It was created with what? What is it? His body was created. Where was his body from? It was made from what? Earth. Beautiful, mashallah. His body was made from the earth. The angels came with their wings and touched the earth and grabbed dirt and then brought the dirt, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, kun fayakun, and be, and it was, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blew a soul into Adam alayhi salam. Now, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala need something to make a person? I don't know. We don't know that. It's a good question. Maybe to show us that we came from something, that we're walking on the same thing that we are, that we're made of. To show us how humble we should be, that we came from nothing. The same way that angels are made from light, in the same way that jinn are made from fire, it shows us that whatever we are made from, we should always be humble. And only Allah gives value to those things. It's a great question. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what's powerful is this. Our body was created from the earth, so the only thing that we can fuel our body with is the food of this earth. Right? Our soul was created where? In Jannah. So how do we fuel our soul? We have to fuel it with the food of Jannah. And the food of Jannah is what came from Jannah. And that's Salah and Quran. That's how you fuel your soul. Now when you eat so much food, imagine like after Ramadan, right? You get that mountain on your belly, and you're just sitting there kind of scrolling through TikTok, and you're like, I gotta get up and pray Maghrib because it's almost Isha. I should go to the masjid. You're like, yeah, well, I'm kind of tired. I ate too much sambusa and whatever. The more that you fuel your body with the food of this earth, the dunya, the more you are suppressing your soul. And that is why in Ramadan we starve our stomach so we can feed our soul with the Quran and Salah. But when you deprive yourself spiritually through eating so much, you all can eat your popcorn, it's all good. But the point is this: when you overconsume food, it spiritually hurts. It spiritually hurts you. Now, the third thing, a gift to fuel our body. The third thing is to disassociate yourself, or to disconnect rather. Disconnect yourself from this dunya and connect yourself into the akhirah. This is why Salah was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That when there's hardships in this world, what does Allah say in the Quran? Seek help through patience and Salah. Seek help through patience and prayer. And this is why when you pray, you are disconnecting yourself into this dunya and connecting yourself into the akhirah. What's my proof? What's the first question you'll be asked about on the Day of Judgment? Your salah, your prayer. But it's the last concern that we as human beings have. Our last concern is, what time do I have to get up and make wudu so I can pray Maghrib before it's Isha? Because I don't want to have to make wudu twice. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said what? The best of deeds are those that are the best of deed is that which prayer is done on time. But you and I, what do? At least me, I'm laying on the floor, like literally like laying on the carpet, just like scrolling through like YouTube shorts and TikTok, and then it's like Isha time. I'm like, let me just scroll a little bit longer, and then I knock out and I wake up and it's like 3 in the morning. And I'm like, man, now I have to get up and pray Isha. I'm too tired. Let me just knock out a little bit more. I'm kind of, should I wake up and I miss Isha? Now I have to pray Fajr. And then I get super duper tired, and then I knock out and then I miss Fajr. So now not only did I miss Isha, I miss Fajr. How could Salah be the very first question we be asked about on the Day of Judgment? When it's our last concern in this world. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, so first off, that hadith that I mentioned, the best of deed is praying your Salah on time. Do you know what comes after that? The second deed is to be dutiful to the parents. The third one is striving in jihad for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So above your parents is salah. Like that even shows you the rank of importance of salah. Now the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the key to Jannah is salah. And the key to salah is making wudu. I want you to imagine, it's like next time you make wudu, wallahi, I did this and it was the first time. Remember we just talked about how like sometimes when you pray you don't feel anything? Raise your hand if you ever cried during making wudu. Has any of you? No? Couple? Okay. Like, I want you to imagine this. This is the first time that I ever cried making wudu. So I watched this, I don't know, you know like your uncle or someone, they send me like these random WhatsApp videos all day and he's like 40 in the chat and you guys like looking through that and they're like, oh, did you see that video? And you're like, no, I didn't watch a 20-minute video of some guy finding an alien in the middle. Anyway, you guys get those or is it just my uncle? Okay, okay. What was I talking about? Wudu. Okay, so there was this one video of this like sheikh like showing like how to make wudu with like a water bottle, like this much water, right? So literally I'm like, you know what? So I got like a little like coffee cup or something. It was the first cup I found, and I put I like got in the shower and I made wudu with literally like that much water, and I started to cry thinking, like I'm doing this to prove to myself that I don't need to waste water, right? The Prophet Muhammad says, don't even waste water, even slowly. I'm doing this like the Prophet Muhammad didn't have like, you know, water that's just flowing and you just like, you brush your teeth and you just have the water faucet just dropping. And I'm thinking, as the Prophet Muhammad said, that every time you make wudu on your hands and you wash your hands, the sins that you've done with your hands fall off. Every time you do wudu and you wash your mouth, the sins that you've done with your mouth are washed out. Same thing with your eyes, your face, right? You wash your face, the sins in the eyes that you've done are washed off. Right? When you connect yourself to wudu like that, your prayer starts to be more meaningful. The ibadah that you do starts to be more meaningful. Right? Now I want you to imagine this. After, when you get into salah, the Prophet Muhammad said that when you make the son of Adam, when they stand up and they say Allahu Akbar, the sins are placed on their shoulder. And when you make ruku, the sins fall. I want you to, like, when was the last time you like went to ruku and you're just like thinking like the sins just fell off? The bad thing that I just did, you know, how many times you stress? Like, man, I just did the worst thing in the world, I'm the worst Muslim ever, I just did this, I yelled at my mom, right? Tell your mom you're sorry. And you go, oh, no, I watched something haram and I kept going back to that deed and I'm the worst Muslim ever, I keep missing Fajr. You pray your Fajr and you go into ruku, what happens? Those sins are falling. When you go into sajda, don't go into sajda thinking you're just going into sajda. The closest that a servant could be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the lowest position where your heart is above your head. And it's the only position that you do twice in one rak'ah. Imagine, your heart wants to go back into sajda, that you do it twice. No other action that you do in one rak'ah that you do more in sajda. And it's the closest that you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only time in your salah where your heart is above your head. Iblis failed to do one sajda. When you go into sajda, Iblis cries. And that's something very honorable to do because Iblis wants to make you cry, wants to make sure that you're the worst Muslim ever. But you praying and making sajda shows something incredible. Allah says in the Quran that salah is for those, is hard for those, except the ones that are humble. And when you make sajda and your head is on the ground, you're humbling yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next up is, that I want to talk about is the salah of sunnah versus fard. And then, what time do I got till 6:30?
Yeah.
Hey Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes, please. My Siri is a guy, by the way. Hey Siri, tell me a joke.
Good joke.
Okay, sorry. So it is a guy. He's half Muslim. Anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. What was I talking about? Someone hurry up. How before I get into it? Fard and sunnah. Okay, I want you to raise your hand. Nobody raised their hand. Okay, wow. Okay, thank you. What was I talking about? Siri just distracted me. I'm sorry. No, don't talk. Thank you. I'm really curious about that joke you want to say. So the Prophet Muhammad.
Fard and
Thank you. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want you to imagine this moment. He's talking to his companions and someone comes and just like interrupts him. Like out of nowhere, he just shows up. And he's like, is there anything more than 5 daily prayers? He's like, no. You pray 5 daily prayers. If you want to pray more, you can. It's on you, but it's 5 is obligatory. Anything more than 1 Hajj? No. If you want to do more, you can. Anything more than 2.5%? No. 2.5% of zakat, you're good. He's like, Wallahi, I'm not going to do anything more or anything less. Meaning I'm only going to pray 5 times a day. He walks away. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, if this person were to do this, Jannah will be theirs. Jannah will be theirs. Do we all want Jannah? Yes. But we want the highest level of Jannah. Right? When you go to school, you don't want just a D. Maybe, I don't know. Like when I was in school, I was like, bro, I'd be happy in calculus with just like a D plus, maybe a D minus. But like when you're in school, bro, you want an A, right? You shoot for the best, right? Sorry, I'm getting like flashbacks. So like, fun fact.
Calculus, right?
Now calculus is no worse, but I had, fun fact. Remember Fadl and Sunnah, because I'm going to forget the series. So I was actually, I think it was this classroom. I was sitting over there, and like these chairs used to be like these old classrooms. Why is Siri so, okay. So like I was sitting and the teacher was like very like quiet and like soft and like I recorded her so I could fall asleep. That's like, I didn't record her show. But like I knocked out and next thing I know, I feel the chair crack and I literally fell on the floor. And I dropped the class the next day the same way that my dropped on the, anyway. What was I talking about? Okay. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want you to imagine this, okay? Next time you have to debate in your mind, has anyone here ever said like, it's just a sunnah, I don't have to pray Fajr, I'll just pray Fajr. Or I don't pray the sunnah for Fajr, right? It's something, do you want to know why we think like that? The very first promise of Shaitan was to make us ungrateful. That was his very first promise. Do you know how to show Allah how grateful you are? It's by following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you want to know why? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is praying. What is he praying? He's praying with Qiyam. Now, is with the sunnah or fard? It's sunnah. Right? So he doesn't have to do this. He's just doing it because he wants to. But what's his reasoning? He's praying sallallahu alaihi wasallam so long that his beard is drenched in tears and there's tears all, a puddle of tears beneath his feet, and his feet are cracking. His feet are cracking for how long he's been standing for. You know that feeling you get when you're in the witr for Taraweeh and you're like, you're just sitting there like, and your feet start hurting for the first time when you like kind of like gotta like, man, I gotta stretch next time I do this, right? Imagine that for 3, 4, 5 hours. He's praying. And they say, Ya Rasulullah, why? Jannah is yours, you're forgiven. Take a break, take it easy. Don't I want to be a grateful servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So when you express your gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Alhamdulillah, I'm sure most of us in here are praying our 5 daily prayers. You want to elevate your salah? What do you do before you work? I don't know what you do. Maybe you don't work out. Anyone here work out? What do you do before you start lifting big? You stretch. You get ready for it, right? You start lifting a little baby weights so you can lift the big weights, right? What do you get? Anyone ever been to a restaurant before? I don't want to assume. No one's ever been. Alright, what happens before you start eating your entree? What do they give you? Little appetizers, right? Right? Little appetizers, right? What's the appetizer of Salah? The sunnah prayers before and after. You want to get into the mode, in the mindset of working out? What do? You take your pre-workout, you listen to some jam, you're just like, rocking it, let's go, I'm going to lift 1,000 pounds today, right? When you're about to go lift your Salah, you pray your Fajr you pray your sunnah before Fajr. That'll get you in the mindset of Salah. Because what happens when you pray? You're already, as soon as you Allahu Akbar, you're thinking about everything else in the world. You start remembering where you lost your charger. You start remembering like all of these things. You're like, oh yeah, I gotta do this project. I gotta send this text. Oh man, I can't believe I have some ramen noodle anyways. I don't know why I said ramen noodles. Fard and sunnah, right? You want to make sure that your salah is secure. You start by doing the sunnah, right? You're doing your fard, but then you elevate it from doing the sunnah, right? I'm going to share this with you. sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that when you unlock the door of gratitude through following the sunnah of Rasulullah, so this is any sunnah, it's not just prayer, right? You unlock the door of what? Gratitude. When you're grateful to Allah, Allah gives you more. But when you are grateful through following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, something amazing happens. Are you ready? You ready for this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهِ. Say, O Muhammad, if you should love Allah, then follow me. And Allah will love you. So you unlock the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're praying your witr, you're showing Allah how grateful you are, and through that, you unlock the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah loves you, what does He do? He goes to Jibreel. When Allah loves you, first off, there's another hadith that mentions, my servant comes close to me by doing what is obligatory, the 5 daily prayers. But my servant comes closer to me until I love them, doing what is sunnah. Until I love them. And when I love them, I become the hearing which they hear, the feet which they walk, the hands which they strike, the eyes which they see. Basically, when you are starting to scroll through something, and you're starting to go down this rabbit hole of bad whatever that you're going through, TikTok or whatever, you start watching something inappropriate, your thumb will basically say, I don't need this. And you just kind of close your phone. Your eyes will see something but you're just like, nope. Now what happens when Allah loves you? He goes to Jibreel. I want you to imagine. Who's Jibreel? Jibreel spoke to all of the messengers. And he says, Allah tells Jibreel, I love so-and-so, therefore love him. I love Maryam, therefore love her. I love Ali, therefore love him. And the angels only know what Allah tells them. They only learn from what Allah tells them. So now Jibreel, what? He loves you. When Jibreel loves you, he takes this message. The same Jibreel that took the message of the Quran to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he goes to all of the angels. When you die, inshallah this is us, our soul when it goes up to Jannah, the angels start to say, that's my soul, that's the good soul, that's the soul of so-and-so. Right? When Ayyub alayhi salam, when he was the person that, before Iblis came into this conversation of trying to harm Ayyub alayhi salam, the reason he wanted to was to prove a point that Ayyub is going to be ungrateful. And the way he did this was the angels were talking about Ayyub. The angels will converse about you and says, Allah loves so-and-so, therefore love them. The angels love you and they start to talk about you. They start to talk about you in Jannah. And you want love to be in the hearts of your parents, love to be in the hearts of your community, love to be in the hearts of your siblings. How do you do this? The hadith closes by saying, love is installed in the hearts of people in this world for you. What does that have to do with anything? If you pray your sunnah prayers, you are unlocking the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which unlocks the love of the angels and unlocks the love of people in this world. You want a better relationship with your family? It starts with following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the best way to do that, the easiest way to do that, is through your salah. The last few things that I want to share with you, inshallah, are three things, inshallah. The first one is your salah is literally your pillar. Your pillar of all the 5 pillars. You ready for this? What are the 5 pillars of Islam? You have shahada. When you're in your salah, do you say there's only one God? Right? You say that there's only one God. The second thing is salah. Salah is another pillar. When you're praying salah, you're fulfilling that pillar. The third pillar is fasting in the Ramadan. When you're praying, do you eat? No, you don't. The fourth thing is zakat. When you give 2.5% of your zakat, you're purifying your wealth. When you're giving 2.5 minutes of your time, you're purifying your soul. And the last thing, Siri, stop talking. The last thing is Mecca, Hajj, you're facing. The pillar of all of these is Salah. Salah is your pillar to your faith. So first off, here are a few tips and then I'll close on this inshallah. Okay, how much time do I have? Can I go like 3 minutes? 3 minutes? Okay. When you go into Salah, I want you to do these things, okay? Practical tips for us all, inshallah. Number 1 is before you do anything, silence the TV. Don't be trying to finish the season finale of The Office while you're trying to pray. praying, because then you're just going to be like, what just happened, right? Focus. Turn off your phone, turn off everything, turn off all the distractions that you can as much as possible you can. You get into a zone where if there's something that pops in your head, write it down. Now, if something flies in your head during Salah, relax. Don't be OCD about it. It's okay, right? It's not like the whole, shaitan comes and will give you waswas in your prayer. It's fine. It's okay. Relax. All you do is, right? Don't throw too much saliva, but just a little bit. Number 2 is, when you say Allahu Akbar, first off, you have to learn who you are in front of. So know who Allah is. Number 2 is, know what every single position has to do with anything. When you're saying Allahu Akbar, there's a beautiful series by Farhan Abdul Aziz about the purification of prayer, I believe it's called. And you can find that online podcast. It changed my life. The way that it transformed my ability to understand about Salah. When you raise your hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're literally saying Allahu Akbar, and you're pushing all of the things away that you're trying to say, that you think or feel that is greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? When you're in your ruku, think of the sins falling. When you're in your sajda, think that you're the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're about to say Allahu Akbar, think, what verses am I going to recite? What verses are applying to my life right now that I need to recite? Am I going through hardship? Am I grateful for something? Am I ungrateful for something? What surahs am I going to connect with in my salah? And then read those verses and then recite them in your salah after you read them and understand them. Then think that even if you don't feel something in your prayer, know that you do not know what it's doing to your heart eternally. Right? This is very important. Right? There's a story, I don't have time for it, but just a summary. This kid's like, I don't feel anything when I read the Quran. Right? So the guy's like, here's a dirty bucket and it has like holes in it, take it to the ocean, whatever, and get me a bucket of water and I'll tell you how to fill your salah. So every time he goes, he brings the water's leaking. He says, this is grandfather, the water leaked, go back and get the water. He goes back and get the water back, and he gets back all the water, go back. And he's like, this is pointless. All the water just keeps leaking because there's a hole in it. He's like, exactly, but look at the condition of the basket. It's clean now. He says, you do not know what Quran is doing to your heart. When you're in salah, you're like, I don't feel nothing. It's okay. It's okay. Sometimes you're high, sometimes you're low. It's not like salah is like you're going to feel like you're just going to, it's okay, relax. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. You don't have to cry every time you're in your salah. You don't have to cry. Sometimes you're going to cry, sometimes you're not. Your faith goes up and down, as the Prophet Muhammad has said. So just say, I'm about to be in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm about to pray. And the scholars even have said that when you pray, imagine the Kaaba is in front of you. Imagine on the right is Jannah, on the left is Jahannam, and Malakul Maut is behind you. And imagine that it is your last prayer. Literally, before you say Allahu Akbar, I want you to close your eyes and think Malakul Maut is behind you, and this could be your last prayer. Think that on the right is Jannah, on the left is Jahannam, and right in front of you, you see the Kaaba. It will bring you tears. It will make you feel more real and in the moment. Don't rush your salah, and always pray like it's your last. The last thing that I want to share with you, can I get like 3 more minutes? Is that okay? Okay, nobody has like ramen on the stove right now, is it okay? Okay. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did I say was the thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted him on Isra wal Miraj? After all the hardships? Salah, right? I'm going to sit down for this because this one's a heavy one. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 3 days before he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want you to imagine this, okay? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very ill for a whole week. And one time he wanted to get up, he wanted to pray, and he told Aisha radiallahu anha to bring me a bowl to make wudu. So as he goes to make wudu, he finishes and stands up, and he falls down and he passes out, and then he wakes up. The first thing he says was, As-salatu nas, did the people pray yet? And she says, no, they are waiting for you, Ya Rasulullah. So he says, bring me a cup of water, and he makes wudu, and he gets up, and he falls, and he passes out. And as he comes back to consciousness, he asks, have the people prayed? And she says, Ya Rasulullah, they are waiting for you. So a third time this happens, and he says, let Abu Bakr lead the prayer. After this took place, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he prayed 17 prayers in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When people started to visit Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the days before he passed away, he would constantly tell every single person that walked into that room, make sure you pray your 5 daily prayers. Don't ever abandon your salah. That's what he's concerned about, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was Fajr time the day that he passed away. The day that he passed away was Fajr time. And he gets up, and there's a curtain that separated from the room to the masjid. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was about to pray, and all of the companions are about to pray. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he peeks through. He peeks through the curtain, and the companions say that his face has never been so radiant. I've never seen the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam so happy. He peeks his head through the curtain, and everyone sees the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face smile. What was he smiling about? Seeing his ummah in prayer. The last thing that he saw before he passed was his ummah in salah, knowing that if I were to die right now, my ummah is doing what they were told to do, which is pray. And that was the few hours after that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. I want you to imagine this, my dear brothers and sisters. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a companion asked him, Ya Rasulullah, I want to be with you in Jannah. And he says, help me get through that through making sajda often, meaning being in your prayers often, whether it's doing more sunnah. That's the best way to get to sajda more often. I want you to imagine this, and I'll conclude on this inshallah. Every time that you pray, who taught you how to pray? It always goes back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Pray as if you see the prayer. The last thing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was concerned about was making sure that we would pray. The thing that disconnected him after the hardships was salah. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted him after the hardship, gifted him salah, and the first question will be asked about is salah, do not make it your last concern. If it was the last concern of Rasulullah before he left, it will be the first concern you'll be asked about on the day of judgment. Don't rush your salah. Make sure you pray your prayers on time, and always make sure the very first thing that I said is always teach through love and mercy, not through wrath and punishment. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us better understanding. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
قل لي لماذا لا تصلي يا ناسي الصلوات قل لي إن الحياة بلا صلاة